Oh, I know that sound. It's time for the Beer and News Report. Hi, and welcome to the Beer and News Report. Cheers. Today I'm drinking, I don't even know how to pronounce this beer, but it's another Russian beer from the Baltica Brewery. Again, I'm talking about Russia, so I figured I should be drinking a Russian beer. Although I bought this beer before Russia attacked the Ukraine, so I'm not sending any money to Russia during this war. I, like everybody else, support the Ukrainian people in their effort to keep a free country. But let's get back to the beer. Now, this is a lager, which is my type of beer. I like it, but there's a little bit of a bitter aftertaste. So I'm only going to give this 4 out of 5 possible stars, which is still good, so I think you should give it a try. But of course, wait till after the war is over and we've rebuilt our relations with Russia again. All right? Cheers. All right, the Ukrainian-Russian war. It's on TV, it's on the radio, it's all over the internet. Russia's going into Ukraine because it doesn't want them to join NATO. You know, they could have clued this in when Latvia and Estonia joined NATO, but no. You drew the line at the Ukraine, and now you want Latvia and Estonia out of NATO. That's not going to happen. So now the U.S. and the European powers want to get Russia out of the Ukraine, but they don't want to send any troops in. So they've been supplying the Ukrainian people with weapons, especially Javelin anti-tank and Stinger anti-aircraft missiles. You know, this reminds me of the time when I go back to Vermont, my brother has me shooting skeet in his backyard. I mean, it's a lot of fun, but think how much fun it would be to shoot a tank or a helicopter. You know, when you're shooting skeet, sure enough, you pull over, pow, you shoot, and there's a pop of dust that, the clay skeet blows up in the air. That's cool. But think when you're shooting a tank, I mean, that explosion's got to be huge with pieces flying everywhere. Or, if you shoot a helicopter, right, and it explodes and it's floating down, all of a sudden it hits the ground again, and there's another explosion. I mean, won't that be cool just to see? I'm a little envious of the Ukrainian people, but, then there's a possibility that Russia, their tanks and helicopters come back and shoot at you. That's not so much fun, right? Yeah, cheers. Now, since we're not sending troops in, but only giving them weapons, that's really not enough help. So the US and the EU have put on sanctions. So what are these sanctions? Well, these are penalties against Putin and his oligarchs. And I know, what's an oligarch? Well, an oligarch is a really rich person with a lot of political power. Russia has several of these. Actually, every country has these. We have the Koch brothers here, right? Okay, but for Russia, there's Dmitry Peskov, right? He's Putin's press secretary. Sure, we all know him. Then there's Alisher Usmanov, or how about Igor Shuvovlov? Those two have combined wealth of $19 billion. They've been cut off of the U.S. financial system. But wait a minute. Does that matter? Doesn't Russia have their own financial system? Yes, Russia does, but it sucks and nobody uses it. Maybe just Russia and a couple other friendly countries. Everybody else uses the financial system made by the U.S., and this is why the world business runs on the U.S. dollar. Also, Russia has been included from SWIFT. Now, SWIFT stands for Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications. Now, this means that Russian banks won't be able to talk to other banks outside of the Russian borders. So Russia can't do business outside of Russia. That's going to put a dent in the old import-export business. Yeah. So now Russian businesses are bleeding because they can't get any new products. And Russian banks are dying because their businesses aren't doing business. So the Russian ruble has tanked because nobody is doing business anywhere. Which means that the Russian people are screwed because they can't buy anything new, and that all their Russian rubles are dropping down to nothing. But that's the whole point of what the US and the EU powers are trying to do. This is right out of the non-war tactics playbook. When a country gets out of line, you install some draconian sanctions so that its people get punished so bad they protest and force the government to reconsider what they're doing. We've been doing this for decades with Iran and North Korea, and look how good they've come around and become bastions of civil society. Actually, statistically speaking, sanctions rarely work because when a country has decided that they have to do something because it's in their national security and they can't live without it, they're going to do it no matter what. That's why both North Korea and Iran are building nuclear bombs. They feel that with that technology, they won't be pushed around. They'll have some say in world commerce. That might be true of Iran, but North Korea is so far from interacting with the world that a nuclear bomb won't do anything for its growth in world business. Yeah, cheers. Let's take a view from the Russian standpoint. Let's say you're a Russian oligarch and you see that not only have you been cut out of the world business, but your bank account is dropping rapidly. What do? Well, you can't divest into other businesses because they're all in the same boat. You can't move your money because you've been cut out of the international banking system, which means you can't invest in stocks or bonds unless they're Russian. But as we've seen, everything Russian is taking a hit. Is there nothing you can put your money in that'll give you some sort of security or stability? Enter Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. No country has control over Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency unless you are in that certain country like the Chinese digital RMB. Now, the US and the EU are trying to stop cryptocurrency exchanges like Binance, that's the world's largest cryptocurrency exchange, from allowing anyone Russian to trade on their exchanges, but there's too many exchanges. You don't have to use Binance to get Bitcoin. There are plenty of other exchanges and you don't have to use one from the US. Also, the exchanges are saying that the Russian people have a right to protect their money from this fall. And so they're putting money into Bitcoin isn't helping the war, it's protecting the Russian people. So the exchanges are pushing back on the government. If you look at the charts of Bitcoin, you will see that when Russia started the invasion in late February, there was a big jump in the value of Bitcoin. Now, over the next couple of days, as sanctions were imposed, the value of Bitcoin jumped again. And it's no secret who's buying the cryptocurrencies. If you're a Russian and your bank account is dropping like a rock in water, you're going to find somewhere to put it. I'm not talking about buying vodka, although that is an option. Cheers. And it's not just Bitcoin. Check out the other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum. It follows the same pattern as Bitcoin. Now, you may notice it has gone down over the last few days. And there's two possible assumptions that could cause that. Now, one is the oligarchs see that the US and the EU have caught on to what they're doing, and they're trying to move their money out of there before they get stopped by those governments. You can't totally hide in the crypto world. There are ways to figure out who's buying what and then attack them. And now, the other one is the actual Russian people themselves. An ordinary Russian person, like an ordinary American or ordinary European, they don't put any of their money into Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, but they have family members that have moved to another country to get a better job, and they make some money, and then they send the money back to the family to support them. But they can't do that anymore because of the sanctions, right? We all know people who have family in another country who come to like the US and then send their family extra money when they're done paying off their bills. This is quite common and it's called remittances. This usually happens when a worker from a less developed country moves to a more developed country to find a better paying job and then send some of the money they earn back to the family in the less developed country. This is nothing new, but the problem is we shut off any business done through the Russian banks, which means you can't send remittances to Russia using their banking system. So what do? Well, you don't have a choice. You have to use cryptocurrencies because no country controls them and you can get their money through to family members or friends that you want to help. I mean, let's be honest. If we were in the same boat, we would do it too. Yeah, cheers. Okay. Now let's look at the bigger picture. Russia has found a loophole in the system. The developed countries use sanctions to keep other countries in line. It's a form of punishment that most countries don't want to deal with. But if there's a way to get around this punishment, what's going to stop other countries from doing what they want? For sure, China is looking at this and figuring out that their digital RMB might be the answer. But the only problem is, if they let the digital RMB go global, what's to stop the Chinese oligarchs from taking their money and running to a more open country? So for now, China doesn't know how to stop that, and therefore their digital RMB won't be going global anytime soon. They want to keep control of the money and keep it in their country. And that's a big reason why the US dollar is so powerful worldwide. But maybe Iran could do it, because they don't care if people leave. They just want to get out from under the sanctions that they've been under for decades. What I'm saying is cryptocurrencies, and not just Bitcoin, have opened up a new door with new possibilities. Even without knowing or wanting it, Bitcoin and the other cryptocurrencies have made war more possible, which is ironic because Bitcoin, and to a latter extent the other cryptocurrencies, were made to break away from government controls. But it turns out the flip side is that more government interference using invasions, and we're seeing this with Russia right now invading Ukraine. Isn't that how it always happens? You try to do something nice and someone else uses it to get their way and make them more powerful. It just makes you want to drink. Cheers. Well, as you can see, my beer is almost empty. And that means we're at the end of the show. If you want to contact me, you can reach me at this email address. I hope you had a good time and kind of learned a little bit about war and cryptocurrencies and the effects of it. If you like this show, please click that like button. And if you want to see more shows, what you do is you subscribe and hit that little bell icon next to it, and that'll let you know when I post a new show. Until then, keep your beer cold and your interest hot. Cheers.